Will be a very busy year on the election front.
Yeah, Supreme Court race in the state just 4 weeks from today, but there will also be the gubernatorial race, the primaries, of course, and the U.S. Senate race as well in November.
And some new poll numbers were released yesterday from the Marquette Law School, and that means Charles Franklin has been very busy, but he joins us today. We haven't seen you in a while, Charles. Good to see you.
Been a while. Good to be back.
Yeah.
Good to have you here.
This is your first poll since when?
June of last year.
Okay.
We did an October poll of the Milwaukee area, but this is our six month, well, almost 8 months since the last one.
You asked a lot of questions. Let's go through some of them, and let's start with the Foxconn deal.
And this is the first time that we've been able to ask about Foxconn statewide as opposed to just in Milwaukee. We asked people, do you think it's going to be worth it? Will the benefits outweigh the cost to the state of its $3 billion contribution, not counting the additional local contributions? And by 49%, people say, no, it's not going to be worth it. 38% think it will be. So I think you'd paint that as some reticence about whether this is really going to have the value returned that is promised. But we also asked, will this substantially improve the economy of the Milwaukee area, the greater Milwaukee area? And there, 57% statewide think it will, and that's true across most of the state, that this will be a big boost to the Milwaukee economy. But then the last was, will businesses where you live directly benefit from this? Only 25% think that's true. And I think what you're seeing there is actually skepticism within the Milwaukee area on that, because the idea is that our existing businesses are not going to benefit. It might be some new ones, but not those. But then less surprisingly, when you go to Green Bay or Wausau or Eau Claire, people are very dubious. In the Eau Claire market, it's 17% that think there will be any benefit. I think this fits with what Kathy Kramer, Professor Kramer at UW-Madison, has been talking about, that the outstate people see these benefits going to Milwaukee and see this as providing a big benefit there. But they don't think they're going to share in that benefit.
Let's talk about the governor's race. Of course, when you have so many candidates in the Democratic primary, name recognition becomes something people wonder about, and it certainly was reflected in the poll.
It is, and it's not unusual that you would expect non-incumbent candidates this far out to have low name recognition. But that said, it is very, very low. The best known was School Superintendent Evers, and for him, 2/3, 66%, were not able to give a rating of favorable or unfavorable opinion. For the rest of the field, we asked about 9 Democrats. Their don't-know rates were in the 70s, 80s, and in a couple of cases, the low 90s. But it's also nonpartisan. On the Republican Senate side, it was 83 and 85% that couldn't recognize those names. And for the state Supreme Court, an election we just had the primary for, it's in the 70s, can't recognize either of those two candidates. So this is the state of spring elections in the case of the Supreme Court, but it's also the state of primary elections, and in a field that has not run statewide with the exception of Evers. You're not surprised at these low levels, but still they're very low.
Did you look at approval ratings for Governor Walker and President Trump in Wisconsin?
We did, and for Governor Walker, it's 47 approve, 47 disapprove. In June, it was 48-48, so very little change, and that even tie. In Governor Walker's first term, his average was 49.5. So if you compare this to that first term average, it's a little bit down. His disapproval in the first term average was 44. So 47 is a little bit higher. I think it looks like the setting for a potentially competitive race with those two even. He's not especially strong, but he's not especially weak either, and he's certainly rebounded from approval down in the 30s that we had during 2015 and 16. For President Reagan, it's only a little changed. It's 40.
I think you just said Trump. President Reagan.
Boy, you can tell the old guy on the set, can't you?
You've had a long couple of days.
Yeah.
We'll give you a break.
President Trump, it's 43% approve. That's up 2 points from 41 in June. Basically, we looked across a variety of measures of him, and they're about where they were, maybe up 1 or 2 points, but mostly I think it's a picture of stability and perceptions of him.
Is there a threshold where you want to be? I know Tammy Baldwin as well in the Senate race. I think her favorability was 37%. There's been a lot of ads going against her in the state. Where do you want to be in a re-election campaign?
Well, first of all, approval versus favorability are a little bit different.
Sure.
With Baldwin, 20% say they don't know enough to rate her. That's a little lower than Ron Johnson's don't know rate was 2 years ago, but it's a lot higher than the governor's rate. So don't compare those two numbers.
Okay.
But she is a net 2 points underwater, more unfavorable than favorable. It was 38-38 in June. So maybe she slipped just a shade, but it's not a whole lot. And over that period, there has been a fair amount of outside advertising against her. She's now launched her own ad campaign. So we'll see those numbers change as well as with Senator Johnson, people are reminded of who she is during the campaign.
There's a lot of work these candidates have to do. The next, what do we got, 8 months?
They sure do. And, you know, advertising will play a big role in that, as well as debates and other things.
Always good to see you, Professor Franklin. Thank you very much.
Good to see you, Charles. Thanks so much.